Hello world, and welcome to another exciting, fun, and reflective episode of the Little Bit Different podcast. Today is Friday, December 27th when you're listening to this, so I hope you had an amazing holiday season with your family and friends and that you're getting geared up for New Year's, which is upon us. There's a lot of emotions that come up with a new year in the sense of reflecting on what took place in 2024 and also thinking about what it is that we want to create in 2025. And for this special episode, the last episode for 2024, I want to share with you a little bit of the framework that I run through for myself when I'm preparing to reflect and close out on a year and set goals and plan for the year to come. I think that it is important to do this personally. I don't pay a lot of credence to the idea of December 31 and January 1. I think those who know me, I'm a present moment type of guy. I think it's all just one present moment. But the way that society is structured and having a calendar is really, really advantageous and helpful because there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And so every year I will, at the beginning of the year, do some writing, set goals, think about the person that I want to become, what I want to create in my life. In the middle of the year, I'll reflect in on it and check in to see how I'm doing and if I'm working towards it. And then at the end, I'll put a close to all of it and I'll just finish it out. I started this practice with much more intention when I started working with one of my coaches, Josh Church, my boy Josh. And Josh was the first person who got me on this in 2020. Before this, I would write things in my own way, and I don't think I had nearly as much of a framework or a structure around doing it. But I did do it, and I would write it in my artistic, righty sort of way of just maybe having, less intentional about it. But now I'm pretty intentional about it. And I have folders on my computer. The big folder is called Years. I got really creative with that one. I'm like, what can I call this? So I have years, and for example, 2022, I have my writing for what I want to create for 2022. I have my mid-year check-in, and then I have my wrap-up. And so what I'm talking about now and what I'm sharing about in this episode is a little bit of the wrap-up process and what it's like to go through it. And again, this sort of activity is something that I personally find has a lot of value. It's really, really cool going back in time and looking at, what was I thinking about in 2020 and what did I want to create and what did I want to create in 2021? So much in our lives where we achieve something, we evolve to a new level in our lives, and we forget that at one point we wanted to be where we are now. And I'll just throw the word celebrate out there because I love celebrating different things in my life, personal, professional, friendships, relationships. I'm a big celebrator. And I think that at the end of the year, really no matter what happened, I think that we should be celebrating and putting it in a frame of cool, these are all the amazing things that happened. And the reason why we can celebrate is because whatever we did achieve, we're just gonna want to achieve more. And whatever we didn't, we can choose whether or not it's something that we want to hold on to and build on and double down on, or something that we just want to let go of. And there's nothing serious going on here. So the ground rules for this episode and the framework and the game that I'm talking about. Firstly, there's nothing serious going on here. And then secondly, like my teacher Esther Hicks always says, you'll never get it done and you never get it wrong. And you can't get it wrong because it's always unfolding. So wherever you are now, even if you don't have what you wanted to achieve, no biggie because it's still going, and it'll never get done because the process is constantly unfolding. It never ends. It's a road that never ends until the end. And once that happens, you're not playing the game anymore. So I hope that you've had a fantastic 2024, and I'm really excited to share this framework with you and walk you through a little bit about how I think about it and why I think about it. Again, for me, the benefit is less of, it's not like I write this and I read it the next day, but for me, there's a lot of value in being able to reflect on the different years of my life. And once 2024 passes, I'll never be able to go back into that person who I was at that time. And for me, writing is always capturing who I am at that particular time. And without further ado, here is the amazing, fun annual reflection game. first most important piece to playing the game and having fun in the yearly reflection game. And this is really, really important, is that like you have to carve out some time for yourself where you go somewhere quiet, or you go to take a trip by yourself for one night. I know if you've got a family, maybe it's difficult to do that, but take some period of time to be able to just go with go with a notebook, or go with your computer, and go with your phone, and just you have to be somewhere by yourself for a period of 3 hours. And also just like be committed to doing this. And what I can say is like sometimes I'll break it up into 2 different nights. And how I've done this in the past is like I've gone for dinner. I've taken myself to dinner. Very, very sexy, beautiful date. And I've taken myself to dinner, and I'll just like sit at a table by myself, or I'll sit at the bar by myself. And then I'll start working on this. And sometimes I can get the whole way through. Sometimes it takes 2 nights. Maybe sometimes it even takes 3 nights. But if you've got a family, maybe after everyone goes to bed, you stay up, make a drink that you like, or do whatever it is that you like doing to get into the frame of mind and start working on it. And so I think the most important piece before we're able to look into what worked, what did I love about this year, what were the best moments, what were the most challenging moments, what did I accomplish, what did I want to accomplish and not accomplish, and all those sorts of things, is you sort of just have to break the year down into a story. And I think that one of the easiest ways to do this is, firstly, you just start with a blank document and just like free association. Like, okay, where was I on January 1? For me, I remember on New Year's, I was on a plane flying from Zambia to Ghana. That's how I celebrated. I didn't even get to see any fireworks in the window. And like, when I'm starting, I'm like, okay, that's where I was. So I can sort of remember in my life what was going on at that time, where was my business, where was I? And then I'll just sort of in my mind go through the year and remember like, oh, I hired this person, I spoke at this event, we achieved this milestone, this thing didn't happen, I had this challenge, I had this issue, this is what was happening with my family. And just like bullet point, just write out all of the different things that you can remember from the year. Really spend time and think about all of those sorts of things. The first thing is just doing is like, how do you remember it? How do you remember it in your mind of these different things that take place? Then the second piece after that would be sort of breaking it down on a month by month basis. And what's really helpful for me, being able to look at your photos on a monthly basis. So I have this one document with just a brain dump of what can I remember from this year and what happened, what were some of the best moments, I was with my family here, I did that, whatever. Then you open another document and you open your phone, and I know everyone loves having their phone open, and you just look at the photos and break it down by month. And you don't have to look at you don't have to scroll through every photo, but you'll just see, sort of like the zoom out macro for the month of January 2024. And this is really, really helpful because this will help trigger a lot of things in your mind that you totally forgot happened. If you take pictures, and now it's more common than ever that everyone has a lot of pictures that they take. And then so now you're using your photos as a way to trigger and remember the different things that you did and who you were with and what you saw, and just going through that process to remember what happened. You do it January, obviously you do it to January to December. And then it's trippy because like the last photo is you walking into the restaurant about to do your goal, to write this reflection or whatever it is. And yeah, and this is like when you have those two things, you have a brain dump of everything that you remember, plus you have all of the photos. At that point, if there's any other supplementary resources that you have to remember, that can be helpful. So for example, for me, I send out every 3 months, I send out a piece of personal writing that I share to my list of friends and family. And so like sometimes I'll read that, I'll be like, oh yeah, I was here and this is what I was thinking about. And step one is just like, how can I gather all of the information to remember what it is that I did, what I went through, how all of it looked, and just like, okay, this is my year. Because there are some really random things that you won't remember having done, but then you see a photo, you're like, oh yeah, that night that we went to the place and did the thing, and then that surprise happened, and then we saw the band, and whatever it is. But just like the step one always is just, let me get as much clarity as I can about where I was, what I did, what the best things were. And for me, the two best resources, one is just doing a general brain dump, and then two, it's looking at my photos. And then if I need any supplemental information, I'll get that as well. But we can only really reflect on the year once we have had the opportunity to get all of it down as best of your ability. Once you have everything recorded and written down, you've looked at the photos, I'll have the photos open on one side, and then I'll have a bullet point for each month, and I'll write down all of the things. At this point, it's actually a really emotional and beautiful experience doing this, because there are so many things that you've forgotten about, amazing moments that took place in your year, that when you go through this, you're like, oh yeah. Like, for example, for me, being with all of my family in Vancouver, like I haven't thought about that for 3 weeks, but at the time I was so happy, and it was such a lovely experience, and that's something that's great. And then essentially now you have this whole list, a list that is both things from your own memory and then things from that the photos trigger. And then what I do is I'll just go through that list from January to December, and I'll just start highlighting the things that light me up. Like what were the best? What were the things that really lit me up? What were the things that felt the best? So for example, in January, I was in Ghana for 3 weeks. And I lived in this really cool eco resort by the beach for 2.5 weeks by myself in nature. And that was like cool. Like, yes, that experience was absolutely amazing. I also got malaria when I was in Ghana in January. That I probably won't be highlighting that in green, although it was a meaningful experience in my life. But that was, maybe it reminds me of health or whatever it is. In February, I was in Bali and I did a yin yoga teacher training. I definitely will have that on a green. And then what you can even do is, so now you go through on a month by month basis, and you're just you're putting in green, what are the things that totally lit me up? Like, okay, this lit me up. And then even you can make a separate document, and the document can just be filled with things that you highlighted in green. So, for example, I went to Bali. I did a yin teacher training. That was amazing. I got to see the gorillas in Uganda with a friend of mine. That was something that would be on the list. That was amazing. I learned to kite surf with a kiteboard. I ran my first retreat. I spoke at an awesome Pilates event. Whatever it is, all of these different things. And then now you just have a document of all of the green things that you have. Also, if you decide, and you totally can as well, you can highlight things as like yellow, where it's sort of like, like that was sort of, a tweener type of event. And then if there's something bad that happened, you could also put it in red. Cause like, we don't want to bypass bad things that happen in our lives, but you can also put it in red. And to the degree that you want, you can have a list of green, yellow, and red, or you can just have a list of green. And the point of it is that now you have this document. You don't even have to create a new document. You can just stay in the original one and just look at like, okay, what is the common theme between all of these different things? Like what is it that made all of this so great? So for me, the things that usually excite me are things related to travel. They're related to people who I love in my life. It will be continued growth and evolve, personal evolution or transformation. Going on the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, meditation retreat, advanced course was something that like totally is like super, super the greenest of the green things that I could have when I think back on the year. Personal relationships that I had, seeing friends, seeing family. And this is really important because now you're looking back on the year that happened, and this is your highlight reel. And if you want, you can make a photo album of your favorite, like you can do whatever you want. I'm just giving a basic framework. And now you have a document where on a month by month basis, or just overall for the year, you're like, oh, this was awesome. This was awesome. This was awesome. This was awesome. These are all the different things that was like, okay, I had the best year of business, best year of revenue for my business. This was awesome. We improved this. We achieved this milestone. I did this thing. I wrote this. I started this. Whatever it is, just like you want a list of all of the best things that you did and what you're most proud of and the things that lit you up the most, because this is going to be the framework for what you're going to want to create in the next year. We're not there just yet, but it's really, really, really important to take some time and reflect and actually think like, what were the best things that I did? Why were these the best things? And what did I love about it and what was special? And even additionally, you can, for every green highlight that you have, you can just throw in a bullet point under it like, Bali was epic because I met so many people and I really grew as an individual, or I saw what was possible by living in Southeast Asia. As an example, the Dr. Joe meditation for me was, bullet point under it, like doubled my daily meditation total time than what it was from before, and realize that I'm a mystic. Whatever it is, just go through the process, look at all the greens. Why did that particular thing light you up? And then you get to the point of asking the bigger questions and putting all of these emotions into words. Hello, world. This is Corey from A Little Bit Different Podcast. I'm going to tell you a statistic now. You're not going to believe it. Only 22% of people who listen to the Little Bit Different Podcast actually subscribe or like the channel. So right now, I'm on a mission to get 250 subscribers to the channel by the end of the year. Will you help me? I'm hoping that the answer is yes. So please, anytime you watch any of our content, hit subscribe, that whole button there, and like it and share it and keep being different and having the most fun ever. This next part is really where me as the writer takes over, loves, enjoys, thrives in this process. And now I'm going to start writing about my yearly review. So I'm going to look at all of the different green things and the whole list of everything. And there are a couple of prompts or questions which are pretty simple. And I think it's less about having the right question, and it's much more so about starting the process of actually just writing and sitting and writing. So again, this whole thing can be divided up. You can do it at one time. You can do it at different times. You could go to a cabin for a night by yourself. You can take yourself for dinner. You could wake up super early and watch the sunrise. There's no formula for any of it. But now I've reminded myself of mostly everything that I did from my memory, from looking at photos, and then also I've come up with a highlight reel. And then I'm going to start asking myself questions like, what was the theme of 2024? What happened in this year in my life? So for me, Corey, probably the biggest evolution of what took place this year was like, this was the year that I entered into a mature adult relationship, like an awesome, healthy, mature, wonderful relationship. That's something that's been an intention for some years. It's something that I've always wanted to have, and this is what happened. Now I'm just going to write about that. Like, okay, so this was something like, what were the best things that happened in 2024? I was able to travel the world and grow my business and meet an amazing woman and create the relationship that supports me in the life of my dreams and all of these things, and take my business to this level and support my clients. And this is just me talking about myself, and all of those sorts of things. But now you just want to have some general questions, and the questions can be things like, what was the theme of 2024? What were some of the best moments of this year and why? What was one thing that completely surprised and delighted me in 2024? And now you can also, and I know that we're just talking about 2024, but if you have the benefit of having done a similar exercise in 2023 or at the start of 2024, setting goals for the upcoming year, you can look back and be like, what is something that I wanted to accomplish in 2024 and I did? So you can write about that. What is an example of something I wanted to accomplish in 2024 and I didn't? And you can write about that. And even you can just remember, I'm a writer, I'm very intentional about these things, but you can remember like, oh, where was I in New Year's on 2023? And how did I want this year to go? And how did the year, in fact, actually go? And just, again, the questions, there's no magical question to do it. What score would I give myself out of 10 for this? How did I improve and grow? What's the newest skill that I developed in this past year and how has it helped me? What is a skill, that I didn't develop, or where's somewhere that I could have improved? Like, how could I have showed up better for myself and for others? And I think that what's really, really important when you're doing the annual reflection is just coming back to the nature of, firstly, you want to reflect and see what actually lights you up and what things matter. The whole point of this exercise is, what are the actual things that matter in my life? Because when you get clarity about what matters in your life, you can then focus on those things more. That's part of what this is. Half of it is the story that we tell ourselves about our lives. Like, oh, I'm a traveler and I did this and I went here and I grew this and now I'm studying and now I'm whatever. Cool. All of that's a story, and I understand that that's a story. But the extract, like the juice of what we're trying to get is, what were the worthwhile activities and moments? And how, if I know that those are important, how can I double down on those and do more of those for the future? And that's really what I want you to be able to get. And that's the benefit of what I've been able to get from doing these reflections. And sometimes I'm looking right now on my computer. I have a folder that's called Older Writing, 2022/2023. At any point I can open up and be like, oh, these were my goals. This is what I wanted to do. And these are my annual reflections. And for sure, as I'm going to get ready to do this for 2024, I'm going to think about 2023. And like before I got on that plane to go from Zambia to Ghana, who was I? What did I want to create? How did I want to feel? What did that look like? Where was I going? And everything related to that. But when you ask yourself these questions, you want to be able to extract like what matters in your life. That's the point of this. The point is to take a little bit of time to stop and reflect on like what was actually worthwhile from the things that I did, what made me a better person, what brought a sense of fulfillment and purpose and service into my life. How can I do more of that? And what were the manifestations and examples of that? And then how can I put myself in a position to do more and more of that in the future? In the same vein, I know 100% for myself, there are a lot of goals that I set for 2024 that I either didn't even get started on or didn't come anywhere close to fruition. And that is okay. Goals are guardrails. Goals keep us focused in a particular lane, and it's 100% healthy and normal and an encouraged practice to let yourself abandon a goal that you are working towards. As long as you can gauge how you're doing and how you're feeling and what's working in your life and how can I do more of what's working, a lot of the times a goal is just, oh, I think that if I do this, then I will feel happy, fulfilled, supported, worthwhile, living my purpose, all of those sorts of things. That's a goal is just like, oh, if I do this, then most likely I'm going to feel in this particular way. And so in the same way, sometimes we think that something is going to make us feel that way. We start working towards it and we're actually like, no, this isn't it. That's not it. Not this one. And that's totally cool. And I think that part of what this experience is about is like looking at what actually worked. What was it about? How can I deconstruct what worked and get some clarity on it? What didn't work? What was a goal that I totally abandoned or isolated? And how can I regroup for the next year? That's what this whole process is about. I've gone through this process. I've got clarity about what works, what doesn't work, what were the best moments, what did I say I was going to do and not do? How do I feel about that? Do I want to recalibrate towards that goal or not? All of it. And it's just, and as I've been recording this, I realized that it makes sense to do a yearly reflection for 2024, which is what this podcast has been. And then the next episode I'm going to record is going to be how to mentally get prepared for the next year and what it is that you want to create and what different things you need in order to make that happen. So I sort of just want to provide a little bit of a summary of what I've spoken about and why to me this is really, really helpful. The first thing that I have to say is just I've given a basic framework for a way to do this. You are a creative, unique individual. You can find your own way. It doesn't have to be any of this. I've shared my particular methodology and the way that I've been able to find this to be a meaningful process, but you find your own. The reason why we're doing this is it's awesome to remember. It's like, it's always, for me, it's always a really fun, special time when I sit with my computer and my photos and I look back on what happened in the past year and what I created and how that made me feel and what the best moments were. But also for me, the real point is like, what is working in my life and why? What are the things that I did that felt really, really good and how can I double down on that? And I say this is coming from someone who I've spent a lot of time in my 30s setting goals and being a goal setter. And sometimes I've blindly followed goals under the belief that if I abandon a goal that I had set, that there was something wrong with me or I was a quitter or I didn't do it properly or I didn't do it right. Something along that sort of story. And I've never, ever before in my life given myself more leniency and patience and compassion and love and permission to change my goals when I feel like changing them. And that's okay. Again, the goal is just choosing a random marker on a map and putting a pin in and being like, okay, if this thing happens, I'll probably be feeling fulfilled and of service and helping others. There you go. And feeling wonderful about life and feeling like I'm coming close to realizing my potential or in the realm of achieving my potential. And there are, if you look, and I always say this both with sales and with every relationship and all interactions. You always want to be playing detective. You want to be a detective, and I always visualize Sherlock Holmes with like a little magnifying glass, and I'm just taking a magnifying glass, and the first thing I'm doing is gathering all of the information that I can for this past year. What happened? Where was I? What did I do? How did I do it? Next question is like, okay, cool. I now have all of the facts subjectively, but I still have all of the facts. The next question is, what was awesome? What were the things that worked? Why did it work? What did I love about it? How did that make me feel? And then the third step is like being a detective and asking questions about it. Like, why was this thing great? Why is being in a relationship important to me? Or why was it important to me that I focused on building a sales system for my team? Why was it important for me to get a new business coach in 2024, and how did that affect me? And should that influence my decision to get a new business coach moving forward or stay with my current one? There's no right answer for all of this. We're always the creator of the stories of our lives. So once you realize that, this is you deciding to tell the story. And I can tell you 10 years from now, when you look back on 2024 and read this, you will smile. You'll probably be like, I'll speak only for myself. I'll probably look back and be just like, I knew nothing at that particular time. That's part of the fun in life. We're always learning more. We're always evolving. We're always becoming better. But you're playing detective on how your year went, and you're getting clarity and perspective on all of the important elements of it. And I share this episode with a lot of love. And this has been a practice that when I think on the most valuable things that I have in my life, it's that I took concerted time and effort to reflect on what was happening in my life and how I felt in that particular moment as I was doing it. And there's no amount of money or external validation that is worth the same thing as remembering how I felt in a year before I closed it out, and creating a highlight reel and asking myself questions about what was the biggest accomplishment, what were the biggest challenges I overcame, what were things that I thought were important that I didn't end up pursuing, and just enjoying the process, celebrating the year, taking myself on a date to enjoy it, and just having fun with it. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, the final one of 2024, and I'm sending so much love that you enjoy this process, that you have fun with it and you play around with it, and do your future self a favor. Take a moment to look back on the year and feel awesome about everything that you've done, and you never get it done and you can't get it wrong. And all we're doing is having fun here. Whatever it is that you do, stay different.